están? Saludos desde Santa Cruz, Bolivia. Hello everyone, how are you? I know it's been a while since you've heard from me, so I thought I'd give it a try at a video update. So I'm coming to you for today from my yard, at my little tiny yard here at my house in Santa Cruz, Bolivia, where I live. So this is my yard. It's small, but this was my sanctuary and my sanity during almost 4 months of strict lockdown that we had because of the COVID-19 virus last year, the first wave of it. So in a city of almost 3 million people, I treasure this little piece of nature. So I have some trees and some flowers and plants. And during the quarantine, I would come out and I would sit in my hammock chair and I would worship the Lord and thank Him for His goodness, even in the midst of all the difficulty. And as I contemplated my little piece of nature and the hummingbirds that would come to visit, I would often lift my eyes to the heavens and worship the Lord and thank Him for who He is and remind myself where my help comes from. My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. He's in control. He's got this, He's got me, and He's got you too. So in the past, many of you have asked me about where I live, and it's really hard to explain without being able to show you. So I thought I'd take advantage of this video update to give you a little peek of where I live here in Santa Cruz. So this is my house. I rent a 3-bedroom apartment. But I'm never completely alone because my apartment is part of a larger compound. It's actually a family's home. The owner is a widow. She's a lovely Christian lady from my church here. And in the back there's lots of other rooms. So she lives back there, her son, her daughter, and her husband and their 4 kids, and then other people like myself who rent. And this was such a huge blessing during the quarantine because I have my own space, but at the same time I was never completely alone. And back there under that lovely tree, in the cool of the evenings during the almost 4 months of strict quarantine where we weren't able to go to church, we started having our own house church services back there. Every other evening we would meet together to worship the Lord and to meditate on His Word and to pray for the civil unrest in Bolivia that's still happening to this day, and also for all the people suffering from COVID-19. Now that COVID restrictions have lifted and we're able to move around more freely, little by little we're getting back into the swing of things. But God never ceases to amaze, and I've really just been astounded at how much God did in and through us in spite of all the craziness caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, and even sometimes because of it. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you today. The main ministry that I lead, called Proclama, that's focused on mobilizing Bolivian churches for world missions. In spite of the almost 4 months of quarantine and lots of restrictions following that, last year in 2020 we were able to achieve just about 80% of all the things we had planned, and most of that we did virtually. Because of the pandemic, we were forced to go virtual, so all of the workshops and things that we usually teach in person in the churches, we did on the internet over Zoom, and that expanded our influence. We were able to have people participate from other cities, from other countries. We did some prayer events, and our virtual prayer events we had about 3 times more attendance virtually than we usually do when we have a prayer event physically. In a normal year, we'll talk to maybe 5 or 6 people that come to us that feel like God's calling them to serve as a missionary, and we're able to orient them and mentor them. But last year, in the midst of the pandemic, we talked to about 15 new missionary candidates that God's calling to serve Him. So I'm just so excited at what God's doing and how He's answering our prayer that He send forth workers to the harvest field. Something else we were able to accomplish during the quarantine of the pandemic, we really were able to dig in and finish the development of a new missionary training center called AILA. And that was scheduled to launch in January of this year. Unfortunately, the second wave of COVID came, so we've had to postpone the full launch, but we were able to launch a few classes. And so we have a few students who are participating in part of Ayla, and we're hoping that by 2022 we'll be able to launch the full program. We also finished our Proclama website and launched that. So I'll try to include a link so you can visit our website. Even though it's in Spanish, you can see a little bit of what we're doing, and also a link for the Ayla video. In addition to Proclama, I'm also the field director for the SAM Bolivia team. So I'd ask your prayers, please, as we are emerging from this quarantine and pandemic. Please pray for me as I seek to lead the team as we refocus and recharge our ministries in this new year. I just can't thank you enough for being part of this adventure with me. I'm amazed at how faithful you've all been, at your generosity throughout this whole time of, I'm sure, economic difficulties for many of you. You've continued to give, and so I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much again. I love you. God bless you, and hope to see you soon.